Video, we'll be going over the IRS notice CP16. So this is a notice of a tax refund offset. So we'll go through a couple of parts of this notice because it can be a little confusing to understand. First of all, it's heavily redacted, including information fields that probably don't contain sensitive information. However, this is the example that's on the IRS website. So we'll go through as much as we can, and then we'll talk about what generates the CP16 notice and what your options can be. So in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the type of notice, which is CP16, the tax year. This is for the 2009 tax year. The notice date, February 9th, 2011. And I'm going to pause right here just to make a note for the video. Anytime you see the notice date, if you see an action that needs to be taken down in the further on in the letter, like please respond within 30 days or please respond within 60 days, the IRS is usually referring to that notice date. So 30 days from the notice date. 30 days or 60 days from the notice date. So this is an important thing to keep in mind because generally speaking, if you don't respond, the IRS's natural assumption is that you agree with their position. And if they're in the collections process, they're just going to keep progressing through the collections process. So, that is an important distinction because I'm going to take a moment to point out where this letter is in the collection process. It's CP16 is somewhere in here. And if there's a timeline, the IRS just keeps moving forward until you see things like, hey, we need to go into private debt collection, or we need to place a lien on certain assets. So not that that is the case in this situation. It turns out that there is a different outcome that happens. So let's go review this redacted version of this. So here is the IRS's address, which apparently they don't want you to know. Here is the taxpayer's complete information and address. So one important distinction is if you've recently changed your address, then you should file IRS Form 8822, which is the IRS change of address form. You can also call the IRS, validate your information that way, and then you can update your address over the phone if you wish. So changes to your given tax year, your tax return. This is probably a Form 1040. There's a refund here, but the explanation to this was that the IRS believes that you miscalculated something on your tax return that impacted your income. So when the IRS applied changes to the return, there is a refund due, but then the IRS also found that for the 2000 tax year, there was an outstanding tax balance. So in this case, the IRS applied part of the tax refund to the 2000 outstanding tax liability. So let's go to the summary and let's just pretend to unredact some of this information. So let's imagine that payments that you made were $10,000 and you owed $5,000 for the 2009 tax year. So you should get a refund of $5,000. However, the IRS determined that you owed $2,000 for the 2000 tax year, and 5 years or 9 years of interest charges. It ends up being an additional $500. So that $5,000 refund is now reduced by the amount that you owed plus the interest, that $2,500. So your refund due would be $2,500. So, and then of course at the bottom, if you agree with the changes, you don't need to do anything. However, you may want to adjust your tax withholdings in the future to avoid underpayment. You can do this by probably one of the more straightforward ways to appropriately calculate your estimated tax is to use the worksheet in IRS Form 1040-ES. So the ES is the estimated tax coupons that you can print out and send with quarterly paychecks or checks to the IRS. But within that, there is a worksheet that helps you account for all the items of income plus any deductions, any credits, and help you better understand like what your withholdings should be. And then you use whatever withholdings that you've already got on file with your W-4 or your various other withholding sources, and then you just are able to make those quarterly payments based on that worksheet. Contact information, if you've updated your address. I believe that this is a dated version of this of an IRS notice. I haven't seen this information field on any of the more recent ones, so I'm not sure that that this actually would be on a CP16 that you would see. But if you don't agree with the changes, then you would call the IRS, review your account. You can contact the IRS by mail, probably by mailing to the contact information fields up here. And then again, if the IRS does not hear from you, their operating assumption is that you agree with the notice. And then further below, this discusses the changes that were made to the 2009 tax return. And in this case, there is a computation error that the IRS determined you made on IRS Form 8803. They made the adjustments based on the taxpayer calculations, the IRS calculations, and then this ended up generating that refund that the IRS was discussing. So if you look at the Taxpayer Advocate page, the CP16 notice specifically talks about offsets. It doesn't necessarily include the miscalculation from your tax return, but the Taxpayer Advocate basically says that the notice CP16 shows that you're due a tax refund from the IRS, but that if you owed a federal tax debt from a prior year or a debt to another federal agency, then the IRS can offset that tax refund and allocate it to your debt. So this recomputation is a confusing factor because you may receive a CP16 without any tax return recomputations. So if you're filing as a married couple, there are two things that if you're the spouse that believes, hey, I don't know why this is happening to me, it could be one of two things. So the first thing would be something that could qualify as innocent spouse relief. So let's imagine that there's a married couple, John and Mary Doe, and John handles all the finances and Mary trusts him because she has other household responsibilities. So he makes all the money in the house, he controls all the finances, and much to Mary's surprise, she does not know this, but he has been taking false credits and not paying enough in taxes. So if they get slammed by the IRS will expect John and Mary Doe to be equally accountable for any past due debts. However, if this happens, Mary could file IRS Form 8853, which is a request for innocent spouse relief. And if she meets certain qualifications, then the IRS could say, hey, all right, we're going to pin this on John. Mary, we don't think it would be fair for you to be held responsible for the things that John has done. So that's option one. Option two is what's known as injured spouse relief. So in this case, let's imagine that John and Mary Doe had gotten married recently, but what Mary doesn't know is that John Doe owes the state of Texas or $10,000 for unemployment reimbursement. So he received a bunch of compensation, but they did an assessment and he owes them $10,000. State governments can forward certain types of debt to the Treasury Department under a program known as the Treasury Offset Program. And under the Treasury Offset Program, the Treasury Department, which the IRS is a part of, can garnish certain federal payments from individuals to pay these past due debts. So, for example, the most common one and the one we're talking about now is tax refunds. So if John owes $10,000 and John and Mary were due a $5,000 refund, then under normal rules, the IRS would take that entire refund and allocate it to pay down John's past debt to the state of Texas. However, if Mary has been earning equal money, let's say in this case, John and Mary have been, they have equal income, equal tax withholdings, everything is split down the middle. And now they're expecting a $5,000 refund, but Mary says, hey, I didn't know that debt. Like, why is my part of the refund being held accountable and to pay down my husband's debt? That's not fair to me. In this case, Mary could file IRS Form 8379, which is known as Injured Spouse Allocation. And that form would allow Mary to kind of inform the IRS as to the allocation of their income on their joint tax return, their income, their tax withholdings, their credits, their deductions. And let's imagine that they split everything down the middle. Then the IRS could reallocate, the part that should go to Mary, presumably 50% if they split everything down the middle. And then that would get issued back to her. Now, John's debt would obviously, only be paid off by that $2,500, but that would be something that Mary can do if she did not feel that it was fair for her part of the refund to be garnished to pay down John's debt. So there's additional information on the back of the notice, basically just some additional resources. So like, for example, the link to the IRS website, if we go to this, it simply kind of says the stuff that we just talked about. If you need to make payments, there's links to the online payment tool. That would be how you can apply for an installment plan. You can make payments directly through the IRS website. You can pull up your tax transcript to see what kind of outstanding tax liabilities you may have for prior tax years. And then there's other kind of FAQ type, information, a lot of which we already discussed. So that's all we have for this notice. If the IRS updates their CP document that they currently have online, I can come back and maybe republish this video. So we'll put links in the show notes to articles and videos that we've created about the forms and schedules that we mentioned here. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if there's a question or a comment that you would like to see in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.